parameters for AB 540, and I'm going to talk about that. All right. You're going to get students with all different kinds of visas. And, you know, typically, generally speaking, if a student is here with a non-immigrant visa, so they're here on a student visa, they're here with their family on a tourist visa, they're here under one of the other 26 possible visas they could have. Generally speaking, they're not going to be eligible to complete the DREAM Act application with a non-immigrant visa. Now, I am not an immigration attorney, and there are some very convoluted situations. So I'm not going to say that I know every single scenario, but I can tell you that if a student has a non-immigrant visa with a couple of exceptions, then it's unlikely they can apply for financial aid. So the exception is T visa holders can file the FAFSA. And like I said before, U visa holders can file the California DREAM Act application. All right. So what if a student is unsure of their current immigration status? And this happens all the time. You'd be surprised that a student doesn't know if they're documented or undocumented, right? Sometimes we have students who are undocumented and they don't even know that until they get ready to fill out a financial aid application. And the parents might say, oh, by the way, you're undocumented. It's like, what? So that actually happens. But if a student is not sure of their immigration status, you know, certainly they can try to work with their high school counselor. They can call us. There's a lot of really great organizations that can help. Most colleges have Dreamer Resource Centers. So you could direct that student to the Dreamer Resource Center, and they can help them clarify that information. We're working today with Immigrants Rising. Immigrants Rising has a ton of really valuable information on their website that I highly recommend that you look at. And in the Fresno area, there's a really good organization called educationleadership.org is the website. So you want to check them out if you're in the Fresno area. They can also provide information and talk about services just like Immigrants Rising can. Okay, I mentioned this before, and a lot of people believe that because DACA and the California DREAM Act application serve kind of the same cohort, that it's the same thing. That is not the case. DACA, we're going to see ultimately what happens with DACA. The good news for DACA is that I think we're going to have a new president who's going to be strongly supportive of DACA. So hopefully that situation gets clarified and fixed and we move forward with legislation. But right now, the thing that you need to bear in mind is that DACA has no bearing on applying for state aid with the DREAM Act application. So DACA is DACA, the DREAM Act application is the DREAM Act application, it's CADAA, and those two things, if the student has DACA, if they don't have DACA, if they had it previously and they don't have it now, it doesn't matter in terms of completing the application for state aid, right? They can still complete the CADAA application regardless of whether or not they have DACA. If you're helping students virtually, I'm going to guess, but if you're talking to students or you're working with them virtually or you're in some kind of virtual breakout room and you're helping a student and his or her family fill out the application, here's a key thing that I do every time I do that, and I do a lot of the workshops, you know, tell someone, hey, it's really important to take notes. You'd be surprised how often a student will complete the application and submit it, and then 30 seconds later, forget how to log back into that application. I kid you not. So if you're helping a family, you know, what you need to do, I usually say, hey, mom or dad or big brother or somebody, you're the designated note taker here. Or sometimes a student, take a picture with your phone, all the passwords, all the secret questions, the secret handshakes. I'm kidding, we don't have those. But everything that they use on that application, they should have in a safe place because they're going to have to access that application again. And if they forget their password or what email they use, or even how they put their name on the application, they can have real difficulty accessing it. The other thing I recommend, and this is for the FAFSA and the DREAM Act application, so obviously we're talking about the DREAM Act application here. If you go onto the website, and that's that super long link below in the bottom of the page, that link is like, it's like the last chapter of War and Peace. That's how long that link is. If you go onto the California Student Aid Commission website, you can find the paper application. And what I highly recommend is that you print that out. Why? Because if you're helping a student virtually, or you're on the phone with a student and they're talking about a section where they're having difficulty, you can flip very quickly to that section. And it makes it very easy for you to work with that student because you have it right there in front of you, right? So print it out, have a copy. When you're helping students, you can refer to it, and it makes it really easy for you to help them because you can refer to the same questions and sections that they're looking at. All right, sorry, I have my one monitor off here to the side. That's why I'm cheating. Okay, so the California DREAM Act, many of you have seen it. It mirrors the FAFSA in a lot of different ways. Okay, so it has the tab sections on the top. That's very familiar. In the student section, it's really critical that they get their demographic information correct. So you want to make sure that they're checking that. You want to make sure that they probably should use an email that's not related to their high school or their district. So they probably want to create a Yahoo or a Gmail, or if they're over 80 years old, an AOL. I'm kidding. Does anyone use AOL anymore? But they probably want to create an email specifically for filling out applications and applying to colleges. This is a place where they typically have a really hard time when the student completes whatever academic year they're in, and when they're going to start college, they have their high school diploma. So you want to make sure that that's the status that they're indicating. The other questions that they have difficulty with are these, at 28, 29, and 30. So will you have your first bachelor's degree? Sometimes students project and go, well, I'm going for my bachelor's. That's not the right answer. So no. 29, I'm assuming this is a high school student that we're talking about. Obviously, if someone is in college and they're just renewing their application, this wouldn't be accurate. But for a high school senior, this would be accurate. So never attended college first year. And then on 30, what degree are you going for? If they're not sure, just default to first bachelor's degree. What if they're going for an associate? Just default to first bachelor's degree. The only exception to that is if they're sure they're going to be doing a vocational or technical program, they should put that. But when in doubt, first bachelor's degree, trust me, don't overthink it. That's what they should put. Okay, so they can list up to 10 schools. They should list a lot of schools. They should, even if they say, I'm definitely going to this community college, I'm definitely going to Sac State, I'm definitely going to Humboldt State University, whatever. That's fine. That's great. But we recommend that they list a community college, a UC, a CSU, and maybe even a private four-year. Why? Because then they're going to get a really good idea of what aid they could potentially get from each one of those segments. So they can list up to 10 schools. If they want to list more than that, list all the schools, wait a week, go back in, and then you can delete some and add some more. The dependency section determines whether or not a student is dependent or independent. So it's pretty straightforward. If it's a high school senior, they're going to answer no to all these questions with very few exceptions. So, and that will mean that they're dependent, right? They're living with mom or dad or mom and dad or dad and dad or mom and mom or whomever. So they're probably going to be a dependent student. In the parent section, the one confusing thing that we get is the number of people in the household. So anyone that's in the nuclear household, i.e. the parent and the siblings, that's who you're going to include. If a family is taking care, if grandma lives with them and they support grandma 100%, then typically you'd say, yeah, that person's part of the household as well, right? So you have to look at each given scenario. When in doubt, ask, check with us, check with the college. What if a student's parents live in another country? This happens all the time. Maybe the student lives with grandma, but the mom or the mom and dad live out of the country. Well, for financial aid purposes, we still want the financial information from those biological parents, even if they live out of the country. So that's the information that we should be providing. If the student is not in contact, has no way of contacting the parents, then that's a different thing. In that case, we can't put grandma's information because she hasn't legally adopted the student. In those kinds of scenarios, or any scenario that's a little bit different or convoluted, always check with the college that the student is attending or will attend. Okay, for parents who are not going to file taxes, that's fine. Same thing on the FAFSA. If you're not going to file, you're not going to file. The one thing you have to be a little bit careful of and cognizant of is that if a family says not going to file, but they still have to put their earnings, whatever money they earned, in whatever fashion. And if that dollar amount is over the IRS filing threshold, it's going to flag this application and not allow it to process, because it's going to sort of say, you made enough money that you have to file taxes, yet you're indicating that you're not filing taxes. In that case, the family would probably have to get an I-10 and actually file. So again, that can be really confusing. Contact someone who can help you. So someone at CSAC, someone at the college financial aid office, or a lot of different organizations who can assist you. Okay, when the student signs, it's really easy. So the CADAA is actually much easier than the FAFSA. You don't have to create an FSA ID. Student can check a box, and then the parents can sign right afterwards. If after you sign, you get smoke pouring out of the back of the computer and flashing lights, you go, there might be a problem here. So it'll indicate the sections where there are problems, and you'd have to go back in and fix those and then re-sign. You get a confirmation page. On the confirmation, oops, I got ahead of myself. I jumped the gun. On the confirmation page, if there are issues, it will tell you about that. Notice here that it generates the Dream ID, which is really important. So you want to make sure that the student is writing that down. Okay. In the event that you have problems with the application, log back into have the student log back into the application and check for errors. 90% of the time, that's the problem. Make sure the student creates a Web Grants for Students account a few days after filling out the CADAA. If they're having continued issues, high school counselor maybe can check to make sure that the GPA was uploaded, for example. You can contact CSAC and we can look. And if you contact us, we can go and look at the application and see what the holdup is. I did it. All right. I think I finished on time. I went as fast as I could. Now I'm going to take a long nap. So thank you guys for attending. We're going to switch over. We have the people here.
There's a few questions though, John.
Yeah,
there's a couple of questions.
Oh, question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Lorena's asking, can you please repeat how to go about when a student is applying for more than 10 colleges or universities?
Yeah, really easy. List 10, submit the application. I say wait a week. I mean, technically, you probably only really need to wait a few days, but wait a week, and then you can go back in. You can remove some of the colleges and universities you put previously, and then add new ones. And you can do that as many times as you like.
Another question that came in is it possible to get a copy of this presentation?
I think it's going to be provided. But if not, I'll put my email in the chat, and you can certainly email me, and I'm happy to send it to you.
And then another question came in about what if a student has no access to the parental information because they don't have contact with the parents? What do they do then?
So in any case where there are extenuating circumstances, including that one, the answer is always the same. You need to contact the college or the student needs to contact the college that they plan on attending, or maybe the couple of colleges they plan on attending, and they need to say, here are my circumstances, and the college can make a determination if maybe that student is independent for financial aid purposes, but the college financial aid office can typically assist in those cases.
Okay, great.
All right, are we good?
We're great. Yeah, that sounds really good. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Okay, no worries.
I'm also seeing some comments in the presentation now as well. That in the chat that the PowerPoint can be downloaded on the Sketch app under this session, and all presentations today are provided in the schedule. So
there you go. Okay.
That's good to know. So I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you so much, John, for inviting us to come. I'm here with some of my colleagues from Immigrants Rising. My name is Nancy Jeditis, and I work as the Director of Higher Education for Immigrants Rising. Rocio, you can start sharing the screen if you'd like, in terms of to be able to make sure that individuals can see. We're really excited today to be able to join the California Student Aid Commission because their work is so incredibly important in terms of making sure, and they are doing such a fabulous job of getting out information to all of our individuals. And we at Immigrants Rising, we really work a lot directly with undocumented young people in their college and career path. And because of that, we're going to be doing some work now around strategies on how to implement some of the promising practices that we've learned from the field. So my name's Nancy Jeditis. I work as Director of Higher Education. I worked for many years at San Francisco State as a financial aid counselor. So I used to work directly with the California Student Aid Commission and helped implement the California Dream application. You can see me in this picture holding my binder because my binder is filled with lots of resources and information that support undocumented young people and the educators who serve them. And I'm really excited today to be here with two of my colleagues, Rocio Preciado, who works in the community education team, and Maria Barragon, who works at CSU San Bernardino. And we collectively are going to walk you through some of the different practices that we find are most helpful in supporting undocumented students. So go ahead and take it away, girls, ladies.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And thank you so much for being part of this work. Thank you everyone for joining us. And like you noticed, our presentation today is really going to touch on some of the strategies to be able to implement some of those promising practices. And one of the key takeaways that we have learned in working in partnerships both with high schools and with community college, CSUs, and UCs is really the importance of partnership and being able to tap into the resources that each organization and that this program has. So I'm super excited to be co-presenting with Maria Barragan to be able to really highlight not just speaking about promising practices, but also being able to highlight what are some of the concrete things that you can do and can take action on based on some of the things that people have done already on the ground, really around not reinventing the wheel, but rather being able to maximize the resources that currently exist. And so within that presentation session, within this presentation session, we're also going to be incorporating some of the resources that Nancy has created so that you can leave the session with some resources that you can take with you without you having to, again, reinvent the wheel. And so for today's session, we are going to be going over some of the promising practices that Maria has highlighted. But before we transition there, we're gonna go ahead and hear from Maria so that she can go ahead and introduce herself and talk a little bit more about the work that she's done.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. I share my name with Maria Barragan. I serve as the coordinator for the Undocumented Student Success Center at Cal State San Bernardino, and it's a pleasure to be here to talk about some of the promising practices in partnerships. And I do want to highlight, if you do not have the educator's binder, you know, the one that you see Nancy holding and hugging, I recommend you get it. I am very, I guess what, you know, our teens nowadays would call old school. I like the printed version, so I would highly recommend that you get your hands on the binder as soon as possible.
Thank you, Maria. And so now we're going to go ahead and just go over some of the promising practices that Maria is going to be speaking about. And then I'm going to hand it off to Maria so that she can share some of the work that she's been doing on the ground. And so some of those promising practices will include speaking about ally training, so how to effectively go about implementing ally trainings at your campus, at your school. A strategy that has been implementing around the California Dream Act campaign, and also how to maximize and have an effective way of creating and establishing high school partnerships. So Maria, take it away.
Thank you. So to start off with the ally trainings, one of the most important things is to ensure that you open up the ally trainings to everyone on your campus. But as you are opening it up, you want to ensure that you take note of the people who are present and those that are not present, so that you take note of the key departments that are missing. And if they were unable to attend, then you can reach out to them and ask if there's a possibility for you to come to their office or department meetings in order to host an ally training. If you are in a high school setting, my recommendation is that you reach out to your local undocumented student center or dream centers and ask for that possibility for one of the teammates to come and host an ally training for your campus. Make sure that if you are hosting individual ally trainings per department, that you tailor them based on their needs. So a lot of times, the first ally training that you're going to host is going to be open up to everybody. During that ally training, you want to ensure that you open it up in the invitation of, if you would like an ally training that is very specific to your department needs, we can come and do that, right? And talk about what is being offered at the department, what is missing, and really highlight those key points and when they can change in order for more opportunities to be open to undocumented students. So really tailor those ally trainings, especially if you're presenting to faculty, letting faculty know how they can do research with undocumented students and how they can open funding opportunities for undocumented students to do that research. And also make sure that you are including the following resources and information, and I'll let Rocio talk a little bit about them, but the top 10 ways to support undocumented students, the understanding the differences and the types of California financial aid. And when you are doing the ally trainings, don't just give them to your people, to your allies. Explain the reasoning behind each of the resource. Ensure that you are telling them how they can use it. Put it on your walls. Make sure that students become aware of these resources and don't reinvent the wheel. Like Immigrants Rising already has these resources. So let's make sure that we are sending the same message to everybody. The resource is already there, it's free, so let's use it. There are resources that are very specific to your campus, so that is okay for you to create that. But given these resources, please, I highly encourage that you use them. So, Cecile?
Thank you, Maria. And thank you for really speaking about being able to maximize the resources and really speaking about ally trainings. Oftentimes we take for granted the need to be able to educate everyone, not only folks that are directly working with undocumented students. And one of the great things around this promising practice and some of these resources that we really want to think about the change and being able to have a broader impact with the students that we're working with. It's not only about supporting this one specific student in completing the California Dream application, it is about making sure that every student has access to the information so that they can successfully submit and apply for the financial aid in which they're eligible for. And this is where making sure that every single person within your high school or your college or university is aware of some of these resources. And so one of the key things that I would like to highlight is that our top 10 ways talks about some of the promising practices, not just around the academic support, but also around emotional well-being, being able to change the climate and being able to make a connection and a close relationship with undocumented students. Understanding the differences speaks about being able to understand the difference between DACA, in-state tuition eligibility, as well as what is available through the California Dream Act. And the different types of financial aid really speaks about what is actually out there for undocumented students. There is a misconception that undocumented students have, which is there is not enough financial aid available for me. And with the types of financial aid resource that we have on our website, students can have a visual of what is actually available for them to be able to access and be able to afford college, whether that's at a CSU, at a UC, at a private university, or whether that's at a community college, if that's the choice or the route that I want to go into.
So next we have the California Dream Act campaign. So this is something that we started doing at Cal State San Bernardino, and I highly encourage all of the institutions to take on something similar. When hosting a California Dream Act campaign, you really have to set a deadline. So for us, we have two steps. From October 1st to January 1st, we have identified students and professional staff that can support us in helping students one-on-one complete their California Dream Act application. So what we are doing is we are providing training to our student staff as well as our professional staff to ensure that they are familiar with all the different scenarios that our students can come across. So how to address all the different scenarios when filling out the California Dream Act. So then we create the marketing tools and encourage students to do a one-on-one session. What we use is Microsoft Bookings in order for students to schedule a 30-minute session with either one of our peer mentors or one of our staff members from the Undocumented Student Center. And our set deadline is January 1st. So we are telling students, whoever meets with us and submits their California Dream Act application by January 1st will be entered for an opportunity to win a gift card. We are still looking at more options of things that we can give away, but for right now, we are saying it would be a gift card. So then we send an email out to students letting them know this is happening. Once the student schedules their appointment, what we do is we send them a confirmation email that includes the California Dream Act checklist, but we send a step 1. Again, we are not recreating the resources that already exist. We are using what we have. And we also send them the Zoom link, right? This is letting them know you have a 30-minute appointment based on your California Dream Act, on the step 1 California Dream Act checklist. This is what you need to have if you don't have it already. Letting them know, bring your password, bring your username. If you don't remember that, we will help you retrieve it. Because if they bring all of that, the appointment will take, I want to say 25, the max will take 30 minutes.
And the one thing that I would like to add in terms of the checklist and some of the things that Maria mentioned is that you want to make sure that you're setting students up for success before the appointment. And it's one of the key takeaways that I really getting from Maria and some of these practices, like really making sure what is it something that the student absolutely will need to bring and know. Oftentimes, we take for granted the things that might come very natural to us as educators when we're doing things on an ongoing basis, but some of those things might not be very clear for the students. And so this checklist does provide a concrete step for a student to be able to bring with them and really setting up the student for success for those appointments, to be able to maximize the time and be able to support as many students as possible.
So our step 2 of the California Dream Act campaign will take place between January 1st and March 2nd. And what we are doing here is we're sending a follow-up email with students after they meet with us, letting them know these are your potential next steps. So you have to log into the Web Grants for Students page, right? Here is the step 2 of the Cal Grant, right? The California Dream Act and what you need to do. So this is step 2 checklist. Make sure that you have everything that you need. And then we let them know there's a possibility that you will be selected if you're a male student for selective services. And then we send them that information sheet that has been created by Immigrants Rising, letting them know this is what selective services is, and prepare just in case you are selected to provide proof of your selective services. Then we say there's also a possibility that you might be selected for your income verification. And here is an info sheet, right? And send them to them so that they can prepare. So what we are going to be doing is working with our financial aid liaison to cross-reference the students that have met with us and the students that they know have been, or have been selected for either dream verification or selected services. So the people that we have met with, we will be calling them, emailing them, and potentially even texting them to let them know, hey, by now you should be aware that financial aid selected you for either selective services or dream verification. Again, you can use this Microsoft booking link to meet with us and help you, guide you to ensure that everything is submitted by March 2nd. right? So we have to really keep into account that the California Dream Act is not just simply submitting the application by the March 2nd deadline, but also following up with all the other documents that are requested through the campus.
Great. And in this, on this slide, you will actually get to see that we have step one. So I'm actually gonna go back to the previous slide. As you can see, we have step one, which is applying for the California Dream Act. And on this slide, as you can see, it is a follow-up to step two, which is applying for a CADAA grant through the California Dream Act. So making sure that students are following both steps. Our checklist includes step one. It also includes step two to make sure that students are also applying to receive the CADAA grant that they're eligible for. Maria mentioned really thinking about all of the different steps that students have to take. And so this, what I'm showing right now currently on the screen is a California Dream Act map that we have at Immigrants Rising. One of the key takeaways is really understanding that the work does not end when the student submits the California Dream application. That is just phase one. So keeping in mind, there are additional steps that students do need to take before being able to actually receive their aid. Some of the things that have been mentioned and is very known to come in the way of students being able to actually receive their aid once they're attending their college and university, although they're getting the surprise that there's a hold in their account, is for young males over the age of 18 who do not submit or apply for the selective service. So if you are working directly with students, we do have the selective service resource guide, which provides information on how can a student apply, register for the selective service to avoid some of those roadblocks once they're actually attending their university and signing up for classes. We also have verifying your income for the 21-22 DREAM application. There is another step and another follow-up, which is making sure that students are following up with any income verification processes that they might need to follow with their financial aid office. And so we do have this guide that you can share with students on how they can go about the process of verifying their income if they do get selected for income verification. And here we do have a graphic of what is the selective service look like for folks who need to register to the selective service. And just as a reminder, they do need to go, undocumented students do need to go to the post office and mail the selective service. It's not as easy as just selecting a checkbox on the California Dream application. They have to actually go to the post office, mail this in, get a receipt, and show proof at their college and university to be able to meet the selective service requirements to be able to obtain and access their aid. And all of these resources, we do have them available on our website for you to download and be able to access them directly from our site.
And then the last promising practice, I mean, there's many others, right? But these are the three that we are focusing on, is partnerships with high schools, ensuring that you are reaching out to all of the feeder schools in your area by emailing all of the counselors. So one of the things that we do is we have one of our students go through each of the websites for each high school that we know is considered one of our top feeder schools and get all the names and all the emails of the counselors. And then what we do is we send an introductory email saying, hi, this is my, this is who I am, this is my role, and then explaining, providing a list of all the services that we offer through our Undocumented Student Center, letting the high school counselors know, like, if you don't have the answer, we might be able to help your student get to college. Because at the end of the day, that is our goal. It's not us convincing students, hey, come to Cal State San Bernardino. It's, hey, here are the resources that you need to get to college, right? So for us, it's really important to lead presentations at the high school level, sometimes at the community college. For those that are in, educators in community college, we tend to receive the request rather than us reaching out to the community college. So at the end, we'll provide my email, and then feel free to reach out to me if you need us to come do a presentation. But those presentations are based on the campus climate. So depending on how comfortable the students are, we sometimes have to start by building that trust with the students and the counselors. A lot of times we first have to start with the counselors by doing like a table discussion, and really talking to them about, this is what Cal State San Bernardino can offer. These are the services available to undocumented students. So it's like a little mini ally training, right? And then from there it's meeting with the students, but meeting the students where they are. Especially as someone who was undocumented herself, I really have to take a step back and look into what was my experience like, and what have I liked to have heard when I was in that transitioning process from high school to college. So I really share my story with students. A lot of times students are already in those leadership roles where they're like, I know everything, and I know, my resources. So then the presentation will transition, and it will be a little bit different. It will be a little bit more hands-on. But with some high schools, we have partnerships where we go every so often between October to March 2nd to guide students throughout the entire process. So we talk about resources, we talk about the California Dream Act, scholarships, and we guide them through all of that process. So like, for example, when we do the California Dream Act, it's very hands-on, and we let students decide, do you want to do it during lunch? Do you want us to come after school so that your parents can also attend? And really ensuring that we are opening it up for students to decide. So then during those presentations that we are hosting, we want to ensure that we talk about the resources that are available for students, for parents, for the entire community, basically. Then we want to invite them to the California Dream Act campaign. So the California Dream Act campaign that we are hosting is not just for CSUSD students, it's for any student that wants to participate. And they will still be given the opportunity to enter that chance to win a gift card. And then we talk to them about the importance of understanding the differences. And again, using the resources that Immigrants Rising has. We sometimes don't have the time to recreate. And like I keep saying, like, they're already there. So why not take advantage of them? That way we also ensure that the same message is being sent out. What we do when we do the ally trainings, we prepare packets that we can give out to the students and their families so that they can keep all throughout their journey. And some of the things that we include there are the California Dream Act map, the completing the correct financial aid application in California, the undocumented student budget sheet, the Immigrants Rising Scholarship guide. We sometimes do like a QR code to make it easier for them to access it. Then we do the scholarship search chart, and then building your scholarship essay. But like I said, some of the meetings that we have with the students are to talk to them about these resources. So like if we're going with them over scholarship, it's not just like, here's this document. We're walking them through that process of how they can use that resource that is there for them. So like I said, we do hands-on California Dream Act presentations where we give students the opportunity to submit their application on the spot. And then we just continue to meet with them until they are ready to select a college or university. And that's where the budget sheet really comes in handy, because then we're able to say, this school is offering you this much, you're receiving this much in scholarships. Okay, let's make a decision together. And again, for me, it's important to tell students, you going to Cal State San Bernardino is a plus for me, because I get to work with you. I get to continue to see you grow. But at the end of the day, that's not my goal. My goal is to help you get to your finish line, whatever that might be.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for really highlighting that commitment to ensuring that this is work that is about the success of all students, not only certain students that we're working with. And I am going to go ahead and highlight again the California Dream Act map that we have available again, because we do want to reiterate the importance of making sure that students are following all of the steps to be able to receive their aid. And so, as Maria mentioned, this is something that is included in her presentation, something that Immigrants Rising has available again on our website. It is available for anyone across California to be able to access and download. This is a one thing and one resource where the student can actually get to see and follow where is it that I'm at in this process to make sure that I am submitting the application on time. Some of the other resources that Maria mentioned in reference are the FAFSA versus California DREAM Act, being able to make sure that students are applying to the correct financial aid in California. And so we do have more information about who can apply for which application to make sure that there are no delays in making sure that students get their aid. We also have the undocumented student budget sheet. Now, this budget sheet was created to make sure that students had an understanding of what was their financial need, what was their financial situation, because let's remember, undocumented students are not eligible for federal financial aid. They're only eligible for the state financial aid that is currently available. So there is a need to make sure that undocumented students are applying to scholarships and that they are making sure that they are accessing additional funding to make sure that they're covering a lot of their personal needs once they're actually joining a college and a university. And so making sure that they have a clear understanding of where they're at in terms of their aid and how much funding they'll need to be able to have a college education, a college experience that will be less difficult when it comes to being able to get their immediate, some of those immediate self-help resources. And really the importance of beginning to establish a scholarship culture. There is a misunderstanding oftentimes of the type of aid that is available outside of what is offered by the state or by the colleges and universities. And there are so many different scholarships available for students despite their immigration status. Like Maria mentioned, we do have our scholarship list that is available on our website. This is the one thing that we want to make sure that students are also applying to. We have a scholarship search chart. Again, it's really all about making sure that we're setting students up for success, giving them the tools that they need so that they can actually follow through with the steps that we're asking of the students to take. So the scholarship search chart is one of the tools that you can provide to the students so that they can keep track of the scholarships that they may be eligible for and submit those applications. And so who loves to write personal statements and talk about themselves? You know, oftentimes that can be a challenge for students who are still trying to identify their leadership skills, their knowledge, being able to put in writing what is it that they're passionate about. So we do have our Build Your Scholarship Essay worksheet for students to be able to begin brainstorming. What is it that what are my talents? What are my skills? What are the things that I have done in the community with my parents, with my family, to be able to highlight the leadership skills that I have when applying to scholarships or even when submitting their personal statements. So this worksheet is one of those things that you can also include and share with students so that they can begin to develop a lot of those brainstorming skills and the ability to write essays so that they are competitive scholarship applicants.
Did you have a couple more slides to show, Rocio? I know that we need to jump on to the portion of question and answers too.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and display the graph, the map that we have. Here you can see the applying to the correct financial aid resource that we have, the student budget, the list of scholarships that we have available along with the scholarship search chart. And this is what building your scholarship essay looks like for you to be able to share with students. Now, we want to make sure that students are able to access information and that they have access to quick information. And so we do, at Immigrants Rising, we do have, and we host Instagram live sessions every Tuesday at noon to make sure that we are sending the message to all students that yes, they can go to college independent of their immigration status. And so one of the things that you can do as an educator is direct students to our Immigrants Rising Instagram page, where we'll be happy to answer immediate questions for students, offer hope and inspiration, as well as directing them to our Going to College landing page, where students can sign up to our student listserv, and they will also be able to receive up-to-date information and direct access to some resources. And again, thank you all for joining the session. And we're now going to go ahead and transition to the Q&A.
Great. John, maybe you could come back as well too. I know there's a couple of questions. One that came in the chat right now is they said, you know, people say that it's hard to get a Cal Grant at the community college. And if you guys could just speak a little bit about that. I mean, I know that the Cal Grant A gets put on hold, but maybe John could you take that question? And if you have other questions for Maria or Rocio, please go ahead and put them in the chat.
Yeah, I can answer that. So, and actually I wrote a short answer, but it was short. And if you've seen me type, you know why, otherwise we'd be here all day. So a Cal Grant for a Dreamer is not necessarily inherently more difficult to get than it is for anyone else. Having said that, and what I mean is the criteria is the same. We look at the same income and, you know, all those components are the same. The challenge that the Dreamers have, particularly at the community college, is some of these other factors. So we talked about selective service. That is a huge, huge thing that holds students up. If they get selected for verification, a lot of times it's more difficult for them to get through that process. And trust me, FAFSA filers have all kinds of convoluted living situation and family situations as well. But I think inherently our Dreamers have more. So is it more difficult? Well, I think Dreamers face some more barriers, to be honest with you, just to get to that point. But the Cal Grant itself is not more difficult to get. It's just some of the things they have to jump over to get there is the problem.
Can you explain though, John, like if you do get a Cal Grant A and then you end up going to a community college, like first of all, do you have to claim your Cal Grant? Like you actually have to go and tell Cal Grant, hey, this is the school I'm going to? That's one question. And two is if you go to a community college, then they won't let you get the Cal Grant A. Does that automatically go on hold or does the student have to put it on hold?
So that's a good question. So that's why it's really critically important. We didn't really talk about this very much, but any student who has a Cal Grant should be filling out the information for their Web Grants for Students account. Because if they have a Cal Grant, they absolutely have to do that because there's two things they need to do. One, like Nancy said, is they have to confirm what college they're going to, right? We default to the first one, but students change their minds or they get accepted somewhere else. So they have to choose that college. That's something they have to do. They also have the opportunity to self-certify their high school graduation, you know, if they're high school seniors. If a student gets a Cal Grant A is good for tuition and fees at a four-year institution. That means if they end up going to a community college, that Cal Grant automatically goes on hold. They don't have to do anything special. It can go on hold for up to 2 years, and they can put a third year on it without a lot of difficulty. The one exception to that is for students who have dependent children, this is a relatively new thing. So students who have dependent children, and typically that's not your high school senior, but sometimes, but students who have dependent children with a Cal Grant A can actually get paid at a community college. And Cal Grant A and B, they can get up to $6,000 in access award, Cal Grant C up to $4,000 a year.
And one of the things that I would like to just reiterate, just in response to some of the things that John mentioned, was the resource that we have, which talks about the checklist for applying for the Cal Grant. And then also the resource that we have for verifying the income. So we do have a guide that can also support students walking them through the process so that they don't get stuck in that process of verifying their income.
And I just want to clarify one thing, Nancy, if it's okay. So
Sure.
I've seen this before where it says you need to apply for the Cal grant. The DREAM Act application is the application to apply for not only the Cal grant, but for other state aid. So there's no separate magic or application for the Cal grant itself. Now, there are some other things you need to do, but filling out the DREAM Act application on time is number one.
I think the reason that we call out that difference of actually applying for the Cal Grant, and I know you're definitely right that they're not applying for it, but in terms of making sure that their GPA has actually been received by the California Student Aid Commission, especially because so many different students, like if my name is Nancy Jeditis Smith, and that's what I put on one application, but then it's Nancy Jeditis somewhere else and it doesn't get matched, too many students or they miss the March 2nd deadline. Those are the things that we mean when we're saying that you want to make sure, and maybe it should say more like, make sure you're considered for a Cal Grant, right? So that you do
Right.
these extra steps. That's some good feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually.
Yeah. Do other people have questions? We have a few more minutes just to kind of go forward, and we have some great experts on the line right here. Rocio, maybe you could flip back to your contact information. Yeah, and John, you already put your contact information in the chat, I believe. People
Yeah.
are asking, will the PowerPoints be shared? They are already downloadable, I believe. And then also, we are recording this. We will send this recording to the California Student Aid Commission. So in the same way where you can receive all of the other recordings from Sketch, you can receive this recording as well. But yeah, I definitely so excited to hear all of you speak today. Great to see, you know, the way that Maria is actually putting those resources to use. Love to see the work that the California Student Aid Commission is doing just in terms of being able to make sure that they're getting the information that students need in their hands. And where is it that people can call again, John, if they have questions specifically? There's a number students should call.
So yeah, they can call at the California Student Aid Commission, we have student support and we have school support. So I will, man, come on, Nancy. Why would you do that to me?
I'm sorry. You know they're going to want to talk to you later, John. And I think it's right what you said about that in the beginning as well, right? That a lot of individuals don't write down that really important information about what is their contact, you know, like their sign-in information, what is their information in terms of the questions that they need, because also really important to be remembering. I always tell people, make sure you apply by March 2nd, but the last time that we all presented together, John was saying, like, why do you wait until the end, right? Like, apply now, get that information in, check to make sure that your GPA is in, and therefore you can make sure that students are getting all eligibility, you know, like all the eligibility they have to be considered for financial aid.
Yeah, if you're working with that cohort, so you always hear this March 2nd, forget about March 2nd. You know, from October 1st, if you're working with students, they should be doing it as soon as possible. There are a lot of inherent advantages to doing it now. So if you go to the CSAC website, you're going to have all the phone numbers, all the email addresses. The secret handshake will divulge as well. Maybe some recipes, some haiku. I don't know what else is on there, but you'll find everything on that website.
Everything that you need. Great, great.
And I think the last thing that I would like to share to all of you who are joining is that it really does take a village to make sure that students successfully get their aid for which they're eligible for. And just remember that you don't have to do this alone, which is why I really want to reiterate that if you want to be able to see some long-term change in having all students being able to access the aid in which they're eligible for, it's really important to engage everyone at your school, at your campus, every educator, because they will be key allies in making sure that this process can be a lot more smooth for you as an educator, but also smooth for students directly.
Yeah, great. Well, if there's no more questions, I just would like, you know, thank you to everybody who came. We're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you're committed to the students that you're serving, and just hats off to California Student Aid Commission and all the individuals that put together this California Affordability Summit. And we look forward to having you contact us, get more information about the resources that we have. Also, Javier just put in reminding us that CSAC offers live webinars on web grants reports and matching, and their schedule is right there on the chat. So, and I'm sure it's on their CSAC website as well.
That's correct.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a
Okay,
great
guys.
day.
Thank you.